Hello and welcome to this first episode of the Big G Video Podcast. I am Big G. You might think my surname is Video. It's not. I have a YouTube channel called Big G Video, and that is all about making YouTube videos and making videos. And in this episode today, I'm going to talk about how I got there and how I got to where I am today and now and stuff like that. I don't know if I'm going to put this podcast on YouTube. I don't know where it's going to sit. But if you want it on YouTube, do let me know, because then I know where to put it. I don't want to sort of mess up my YouTube stats by putting long form content on. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast. It's for long form content, which I've wanted to do for a long time, but haven't really found a way to do it for video. So let's rewind and let's go right back to the start and talk about how I got here. So one day I decided I was going to make short films. And I bought myself a camcorder because at the time, smartphones weren't really around. We had mobile phones. I think they had cameras in, but they weren't very good and they were really for taking pictures. So I bought a really cheap camcorder and it ran off tape. And I roped my friends into, acting and being in my short films. And I made quite a lot of short films. And then DSLRs came along and I got a DSLR, and then all of a sudden, I went from tape to SD card. And again, I made short films. So I had a DSLR, and because of the DSLR I had, because it was a Pentax one, I had access to lots of old vintage lenses. So I was fine for lenses, but they're all manual ones. So I was using the codec of Motion JPEG. Can you believe that? And it was all right, it was 24 frames per second. It was fine. You couldn't tell. It wasn't a proper codec. And I was putting things on places like Vimeo and YouTube and entering short film competitions. And then I think I got an external sound recorder. And then I think it just became too much because I was like producing things. I was doing everything myself. I was producing. I was getting people to be in it. And I sort of ventured into documentaries. So that suited me better doing documentary films. I was doing documentary films, but I was organising, can I come and film you? Got to sign this contract and stuff like that. I was filming it. I was doing the sound recording. I was then editing it on a PC. And you know what? It just all became too much. It was such hard work and it took ages to finish anything. And one of my sort of questions, which is really subjective and depends on each person, is do you do enough to put something out, or do you keep working at something until it's perfect? Now, at that time, I would keep working at something until it was perfect. So what I was outputting was the best I could do at the time with my level of experience, with my level of kit. But it was taking ages, it was taking months to do a 3-minute video. I was having to source sound and, I was doing everything. And at that time, I wanted everything done by the book. It wasn't like, I wanted anywhere I filmed, I made them sign a release. Anyone who was in it, I made them sign a release, all by the book. And it was just a little bit exhausting. And by this point, I had upgraded to a Canon DSLR. I got the 550D, which was a cracking DSLR at the time. And then I started to get into Canon lenses. So I got to the point where I just thought, oh, this is too much. I need to do something else. I quite liked making something creatively and sort of having my creative vision. I really enjoyed that. But it was just wearing me out. So I had a couple of DSLRs, I had lots of lenses, I had adapters to mount to different systems, and I just thought I'd do photography. So I switched and I did photography for a bit. And I bought a couple of flashes, and then I found that with flashes I could do portraits of people, I could get over the shortcomings of the sensors at the time, which weren't very good in low light. And yeah, I did photography. And then I set up a YouTube channel about photography. and that was called Big G Photo. And I was really happy with that. So I was doing photography at the weekend, mainly portrait, street photography and fashion photography, and I would sort of document my journey on YouTube. And then I did a podcast about photography because, again, YouTube really doesn't work with long form content. And if you put long form content on and then people click out or don't watch till the end because it's long, that means your retention rate is very short. So then that can sort of impact your channel. So I thought, you know what, I'd just do a podcast. It wasn't really for the reason of it affecting the YouTube channel. It was more for the reason that I just wanted to discuss about photography. And I got guests on, and I'm still doing that. And I think I'm almost at 180 episodes. So that podcast has been weekly. Hopefully this podcast is going to be weekly. But that's where I was. I was riding high on photography podcast, photography YouTube channel. And the important thing to say is anyone who does a YouTube channel, whatever their interest, they're also a videographer. So I'd also done various videography things by this point. I made short films, I'd done YouTube, I'd helped people do filming, I'd done some sort of big photography projects. I'd done, I'd done some video work for people. I'd worked with a few videographers. So, but yeah, I mean, that just reminded me that, somebody makes a cooking show on YouTube, they're still a videographer. They're a cook and they're a videographer. And to be honest, these days, everyone is a videographer to some respect. It's quite common that companies now will rely on people to, their employees to be in promotional videos or to introduce stuff or to film it. So I do think everyone's a videographer. Maybe they just don't realise it. Anyway, I've really digressed because we're getting to the point where everything changed. And what changed was the pandemic came along and I stayed indoors. Like everyone else, I stayed indoors. So I couldn't go out and do street photography. And I made a conscious decision that I don't want to do street photography in the pandemic. Because if I do street photography in the pandemic, there's no one about. The life of street photography is people. Otherwise, I'm just doing architectural photography. And that's all right, but it's not interesting. And I didn't want to rush out and buy a macro lens and just start macro photography and get a fish tank and all these weird and wacky things that people were doing that you saw on YouTube just so that they had content. So I was a bit stuck in terms of YouTube. I'd got into the habit of doing a weekly video. So I was thinking, well, what the hell do I do now? What do I do? Because I can't do photography, because I can't go out, I don't want to shoot with people, I can't do fashion, can't do street photography. I'm stuck. So I started making videos about, my lenses and things like that. And it gradually creeped up to doing videos about video editors, more and more video things, to the point where I was putting a video out every week and there wasn't a photography video. It was all video editor. It was all video editors or video stuff or, a review, a video camera or a little trick or something. But it was mainly because I could do it at home. It was mainly this video editor, this video service, this audio service, that sort of thing. It was mainly video editors, video services making videos. And when I was younger, I quite liked animation, but I was rubbish at drawing. So I started looking sort of at drawing packages and animators and things like Doodly and explainer videos and things like that. So I became quite involved in explainer videos. And then I just looked at my channel one day and thought, this is nothing to do with photography anymore. It was, that's what it started out, but it's nothing to do with photography now. And I can't see that changing. I can't see that going back to photography. So I changed my channel name to Big G Video from Big G Photo because it was about video. And recently I've taken off some of my older ones that are purely photographic because it's nothing to do with the channel anymore. So that's how I got here. That's how I got here today. I am still doing my photography podcast. I'm not doing any photography. So quite often in my photography podcast, I'm talking about things having not done it. I'm, oh, well, I might get out sometime and do photography. And I guess it's more sort of photography news and my thoughts rather than me talking about an actual thing that I did, which was quite common. So now I'm just going to continue and focus on video. But one thing that has changed is I want to go back to documentary photography. Sorry, I want to go back to documentary videos. I want to start making documentaries again. Now, actually, I've been out today and filmed some stuff for an upcoming documentary, but it's not going to be the professional documentaries that I sort of used to make or the perfect ones that I used to make. I'm just going to put something out because I think now I'm not that bothered if it's not perfect. I would rather make a video that isn't perfect than, I can make 4 non-perfect videos for every one perfect video I make. And the problem is, it will never be perfect anyway. So what you think, you might think that's the best I can do and no one watches it. Or you might think that's the best I can do. I couldn't do any better with that. And people write horrible comments about it. Oh, the sound is off, or, I don't like the colour. Why did you make this? And things like that. So, or it will get, thumbs down or 90% liked. Someone hasn't liked it. So I almost think, I'm going to do it for me. I'm going to do what makes me happy. And I like making videos. I've probably made over 500 little videos. I do like making YouTube videos. They're short, they're to the point, but they're about making videos because that's what my channel is about. My Big G video channel is about making YouTube videos. And I'm making YouTube videos about making YouTube videos. So that did strike me as odd. So I'm going back to doing documentary stuff and we'll see how that turns out. I've found a way I can do it socially distancing. I'm not going to be so worried about release forms and getting everything perfect. The trick, I think what makes a good documentary video is having someone in it. That's a little bit difficult at the moment. You've got to go out and research your audience, research the topic and stuff. That is a challenge, but I'm willing to do it. So that is where I came from. That's how I got here. I've talked about where I'm going. I'm going back to documentary videos, and I'm going to continue the YouTube channel, and I'm going to hopefully do this podcast, and it's hopefully going to be a weekly one, just with my thoughts and long form content about making videos and things like that. And I do hope you'll join me in further episodes. I haven't yet set things up, so I can't tell you where to find this, but hopefully if you found it, you'll know. Hopefully there'll be something in the show notes and the description if I remember to put it there. But I just want to thank you so much for listening and say goodbye. Thank you. Goodbye.